Hello everyone, and a very warm welcome back. I'm Sam, and it's a real pleasure to continue our journey, moving from the theoretical principles of data analysis in K13 to the essential practice of data collection in K14. We've explored how to take raw data and turn it into a valuable story. But that begs a crucial question: where does that raw data come from? How can we be sure that the information we're analyzing is the right information to answer our questions? Our focus is K14, a range of quantitative and qualitative data gathering methods and how to appraise and select the appropriate method. This KSB is your toolkit for becoming a data detective, ensuring the foundational evidence for your work is reliable. Our purpose today is to give you the framework to choose the perfect data collection method for any business question you face, which is essential for ensuring your insights lead to smart decisions. By the end of this session, my objective is for you to feel confident in identifying when to use numerical data and when to use stories, and know exactly how to apply a mixed method approach to a workplace problem, ready for your portfolio reflection. Think of a master chef. They know that the secret to an amazing dish starts long before the cooking. It starts with sourcing the absolute best ingredients. In the world of technology and data, the same principle applies. The quality of your insights is determined by the quality of the data you gather. Let's decode the key terms in K14 because they represent the two fundamental flavors of data that you will work with throughout your career. First, we have quantitative data. Think quantity. This is any data that can be expressed as a number. It's measurable, countable, and objective. It is brilliant at answering questions that start with how many, how much, or how often. A quantitative fact is something like, our website had 10,000 visitors last month, or 35% of support tickets were resolved within 1 hour. It gives you the hard numbers. The second flavor is qualitative data. Think quality. This is descriptive, non-numerical data. It's the world of words, stories, opinions, and observations. Its superpower is answering the question, why? A qualitative insight is something like, in an interview, a customer said they found our checkout process confusing and frustrating. It gives you the context and the human story behind the numbers. The final, and most important, part of this KSB is the knowledge of how to appraise and select the right method. This is about professional judgment. It's knowing that if you want to know what is happening, you need quantitative data, but if you want to know why it's happening, you need qualitative data. Let's look at some of the most common methods for gathering that hard, numerical, quantitative data. A huge source of quantitative data is web and application analytics. Every time you use a major website or app, your clicks are being recorded. Tools like Google Analytics automatically gather vast amounts of data on user behavior, how many people visited, which pages they looked at, how long they stayed, and which buttons they clicked. Another source is system logs and performance monitoring. All of our digital infrastructure is constantly generating data about its own health and performance. We can gather metrics like server CPU usage, network response times, and the number of errors an application is producing per minute. The most familiar method is surveys, but specifically surveys with closed questions. These give the user a limited set of answers, like a multiple-choice question or a scale from 1 to 10. The beauty of this method is that the data is already structured, making it very easy to turn into charts and graphs. And a very powerful method is A/B testing. This is a controlled experiment where you might show two different versions of a feature to different users and then measure which version gets more clicks. It's a purely quantitative way to find out which design is more effective. Now let's look at the other side of the coin, the methods we use to gather qualitative data to understand the why. These methods are more like investigative journalism than science. The classic method is the interview. This is a one-on-one, in-depth conversation. The power of an interview is that you can ask, why? If a user says, I found that page confusing, you can ask a follow-up question, can you tell me what, specifically, was confusing about it? You can dig deep to get to the root of their experience. A related method is the focus group. This is where you bring a small group of users together for a moderated discussion. Focus groups are brilliant for understanding the range of opinions on a topic and seeing how people's ideas can build on each other. One of my favorite and most powerful methods is direct observation. This is where you sit with a user and simply watch them as they try to use your product to complete a task. This method reveals the crucial gap between how you think people use your software and how they actually use it. And finally, we can also use surveys to gather qualitative data by including open-ended questions. A simple text box asking, is there anything else you'd like to tell us, can often produce the most valuable and surprising insights of an entire survey. So we have our toolkit of quantitative and qualitative methods. The real knowledge in K14 is knowing which tool to pull out of the bag for which job. How do we appraise the situation and select the right one? The answer is simple. You always start with the question you are trying to answer. The nature of your question will tell you the nature of the data you need. If your question is about measuring something, comparing two things, or tracking a change over time, you need numbers. Therefore, you must select a quantitative method, such as looking at your web analytics data. However, if your question is about understanding a human experience, exploring a complex problem, or diagnosing why something is happening, you need stories and context. Therefore, you must select a qualitative method, such as conducting an interview. The most professional approach, the one that yields the most powerful insights, is often to use mixed methods. You might start with a qualitative interview to explore a problem and form a hypothesis, and then use a quantitative, large-scale survey to test that hypothesis and find out how many of your customers feel that way. This approach provides both the what and the why. It's really important to understand that K14 is fundamental to every single one of your roles. Let's look at how. For you, Chloe, the software engineer, you are constantly gathering data. When your application is slow, you gather quantitative performance data from its logs to find the bottleneck. But when a user reports a bug, that's qualitative data about their experience that you need to interpret to truly understand the problem. For Ben, the data analyst, this knowledge is your quality control. Before you analyze any dataset, you must ask, how was this data gathered? If it came from a survey, was the sample of people representative? Were the questions well written? Understanding the gathering method is crucial for knowing whether you can trust the data. This structured appraisal helps remove the stress of ambiguity that you naturally struggle with. And for Liam, the network engineer, you live by quantitative data from your network monitoring tools, latency, packet loss, bandwidth usage. But your work is often triggered by qualitative data from a user complaining that the internet feels a bit sluggish today. Your job is to use your quantitative methods to diagnose their qualitative problem. Let's continue, as these skills are just as vital for our other pathways. For Tom, our business analyst, and Aisha, our IT consultant, this is the absolute core of your job. Your main function is to elicit requirements and understand problems, and your primary tools for doing that are qualitative methods like interviews, focus groups, and workshops. You then need quantitative data to back up the cost-benefit justification for your final solution. And for Maya, our cybersecurity analyst, you work with both types of data at high stakes. You gather huge volumes of quantitative data from security monitoring tools. But when an incident happens, your first step is often to conduct a qualitative interview with the user involved to understand exactly what happened. This mixture of data is key to effective incident response and translating the technical data into business risk justification. Okay, let's turn this knowledge into tangible evidence for your portfolio, focusing on the STARR method: situation, task, action, result, and reflection. Here are 2 simple actions to get you started. First, Action 1, analyze a survey. Find a survey your company uses. In your portfolio, pick out 1 quantitative question and 1 qualitative question and explain what insight each was designed to gather. Second, Action 2, identify mixed methods. Find a work task where your team combine numbers and stories to solve a problem. Document the quantitative source, the what, and the qualitative source, the why. When writing your STARR reflection, you must explicitly name the method you chose. For example, if you were Tom or Aisha, dealing with conflicting requirements, you would detail the situation and task. For the action, you would state, I consciously chose a qualitative method, specifically, structured one-on-one interviews, to ask open questions and understand the why behind each stakeholder's request. Your result shows that by using the correct gathering technique, you achieved clarity and consensus. This demonstrates professional judgment. K14 is linked to the project report element of the endpoint assessment, EPA. Your final report requires robust justification, K18, for your proposed solution, and that justification must be built on evidence. You need to show the assessor that you used structured methods to define the problem. When defining the problem in your report, you should explain the mixed methods approach you took. First, identify the quantitative evidence you observed, such as performance logs or analytics. Then, explain how you followed that up with qualitative evidence, such as user interviews or stakeholder workshops, to understand the reason for the numbers. Crucially, you need a section in your report demonstrating the skill of appraisal. Explicitly state why you chose the methods you did. For instance, explaining that you used interviews because you needed to explore complex user behavior, not just measure a simple click rate. The data you gather using these methods then directly feeds into your project's feasibility study and evaluation, K18, proving that your solution is not just possible, but necessary. This attention to detail shows professional maturity and separates the top grades. Let's do a quick recap. Today, we have filled our Data Detectives toolkit. We've learned about the 2 fundamental types of data: quantitative data, which tells us what is happening, and qualitative data, which tells us why. We've explored a range of methods for gathering both, from automated analytics to in-depth interviews. And most importantly, we've learned the core principle of this KSB, that a professional knows how to appraise their question and select the appropriate method to answer it. Your mission for this week is to put on your detective hat. Please, just choose one of the actions from the previous slide and practice identifying these methods in your own workplace. This knowledge leads us perfectly into our next session on K15. Now that we know how to gather and analyze data, we're going to learn about the principles of estimating two of the most important numbers of all: how much a project will cost and how long it will take. Thank you for your fantastic focus today. You've learned how to source the high-quality ingredients that are essential for good analysis and smart decisions. Well done.